When I first started writing for it, and I just was sketching ideas, you know, as I was reading the script, and I hadn't seen anything yet. I'd read the script and I'd read the book. So when I think of 1960s Italy, there's a touch of romance, there's a touch of beauty, and there's, you know, I thought maybe that juxtaposed to the storyline might work. And I started sending stuff to him, and Steve called me and he was like, "These are really beautiful. This is really great. There's only one thing I wanted to tell you is that we're telling the story of a psychotic serial killer. So you have to try to incorporate what you're doing in that context. Now, that's not to say that you can't use this melody or this thing here, but somehow we don't need it to be lush and beautiful. And I was like, well, yes, I understand. We don't need it. We have that in the film. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I kind of understand. Let me go back and sort of rework some of the stuff, write some new themes, and I did that as we were working on episodes 1 and 2. And then he called me with something that really changed my point of view, which was, he said, I'll tell you what, why don't, because he had given me all 8 episodes at the same time. He said, here's all 8 episodes and start working on it. It wasn't like one episode after another episode after another. He would just send them all to me, and then they were all sort of open on the operating table all at the same time. But he did say, stop what you're doing on 1 and 2 and go to episode 7. Write episode 7. Write that episode, and then you figure how that might inform what you do in episodes 1 and episode 2. And I said, okay, that was a foreign thing to me. I'd never done it like that. I typically tend to work linearly, but I thought, you know, I jump around in an episode, but typically I like to take the story one step at a time. But I said, okay, I'll try that and see how that works out. So I jumped to episode 7. I wrote the end piece for episode 7, which then informed much of the score for episodes 1 and 2, and even into episode 3 to a certain degree, where there really isn't a lot of score. But it did really inform that. And then all of a sudden it started to all piece together once I had done that. Once I had figured out where Tom was going to end up, I could then address where he was coming from. And that made a big difference to me. Apparently, and talking to Steve, they did that a lot editorially as well.
Really?
They sort of jumped around and yeah, he said, you know, we've been working on the ending of episode 8 and episode 7, and then he asked me to write the end of episode 8, which was the most complex piece of music to write because, you know, here I am, a relatively, you know, empathetic person, empathizing with a killer,
yes,
you know, wanting him to win. And it was like, I was having trouble sort of reconciling that at the end, where I was writing this piece of music where it was supposed to be, you know, he said it's his triumph. He does triumph at the end. And I was like, yes, but I don't want to give him too much because I don't want to be with him yet.
Right.
Fully. Right. I'm not that kind of person, man. So, you know, we finally did find a balance with that end piece of music. But in the end, that is how I was able to reconcile the entire beginning of the show.